Hey, what's up, everyone? So, I said I was going to do a Bible study of the book of Revelation today. And first off, I slept in too late. I wasn't feeling too well, so I decided to do it tomorrow on Thursday. It's really hard to do a Bible study when the light is not very good. And right now, I'm just in my room with a circle light, but I prefer to do it in natural light, so it's easier to. But anyways, I wanted to kind of do an introduction. If I can't do a Bible study tonight, I wanted to do an introduction and explain a little bit about me. So, a while back, I was a militant atheist, and I I know many atheists will say things like atheism isn't a belief system, and it's not that we proved that God doesn't exist. We just believe that there is no proof for the existence of God, right? Um, People famously, like Richard Dawkins, he'll say things like, we don't need to disprove the existence of God. We have finally reached a point in science where we don't need God to explain the universe. That's what many atheists say. And I used to be one of these until I wanted to disprove God. It wasn't enough for me. I wanted to actually disprove God. And I wanted to be the one, I wanted to be a revolutionary. I wanted to be the atheist that disproved God. And so I embarked on a 2-year journey trying to trying to prove that God didn't exist, and it backfired. Not only did I actually not disprove his existence, but I started to become a believer for myself. Now you have to understand that I wasn't raised in a church, and I was someone who was seeking truth, true objectivity. And so I wanted to do some investigating myself, and I had 200 questions, and maybe at some point I'll release them, right? But I had 200 questions that I had, and throughout the 2 years, I marked them all off eventually. Well, finally, at the end of this 2-year period, I started to get really depressed and started to hate myself because I was becoming a believer. And I wasn't becoming any specific religion, but I had proven to myself that God can exist. And if the idea that the Bible was talking about was true, that it's all a matter of faith, and apparently the only reason why you wouldn't want to believe is because you still had things you wanted to do. You wanted to live in this world. And it made a lot of sense to me. I had a lot of things in my life, sinful behaviors that I wanted to hold on to. And I wanted to be able to do all of the things and do whatever I want. And I started realizing that a lot of the people who were upset at believers was the idea of, I don't want to follow your rule system. I think you guys are full of hate. I think that I heard things like, I think that you are oppressing people, and look at everything throughout history. I mean, all the Catholic Church and all of that. And those are good points. And so after this 2 years, what I did was I decided that I'm going to find the right religion. I believe that there could be a deity, a God out there. And so I went out and I did everything from LaVey, Satanism, Wicca, I did Luciferianism, and I didn't practice any rituals. I just looked into these things. Um, I am I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army, and so I spent 2 years of my life in Iraq. So I knew all that I needed to know about Islam, and I actually lived with Muslims in a Muslim country for 2 years, and I knew that was not the way. Very great people, but a lot of the people in that belief system, if they weren't, I wouldn't say extreme, but a lot of the people didn't even read the Quran. So, anyways, I spent a long time doing this research on what was the right religion. And what I found was, when it comes to Christianity, a lot of people, when I finally found Christianity, I found that there were a lot of believers who, there are a lot of, sounds like my cat is at the door. Anyways. There are a lot of believers who are raised in the faith, right? And they don't have to fight for their faith. What they do is they're raised up for 18 years in a church and they believe. Then what happens is they graduate and they go off to college and they start getting all these professors talking about how Christianity is archaic, it is the old way, old value system, and that it's oppressive and all of this stuff. Because we have to admit there are many, I'm not saying there are more or less, but there are many leftist professors out there. Many of them hate the idea of Christianity because they claim that that's oppressive and hateful and things like that. And that's a discussion we can get into another time. But these people come back from college and go see to their parents and they say, hey, mom, dad, I know more than you. You never went to college? Well, I did. And now I know that your system, your belief system is BS. And when you are young, when you're young at that stage, you're looking for anything. You're looking for validation and you're looking to have your own identity. And for a lot of people, especially in their teens, it's really awesome, quote unquote awesome, to be able to say, I know more than my parents and I know better than them. And when their parents were just raising Christianity themselves and they don't have the answers to all these things, then they start drifting from the faith themselves and they can't defend the faith. Now, I myself was a militant atheist, and I basically, it was so weird because I was basically dragging myself kicking and screaming towards God. I had a month of depression, and I was like, I can't believe I'm becoming a believer. I mean, and then I had a supernatural experience. I was listening to this song, Brantley Gilbert, "My Faith in You," and my car's speaker, I've had it for 3 years, and my car speaker, only one worked at the time. It was down by my legs. And I remember that as soon as the chorus came on, I heard all of the speakers in the car just started blaring. And at this time, I have PTSD, and at this time I had never felt emotion, never been able to cry. And suddenly I felt a strong presence in my passenger seat. And I was crying so much that I couldn't see where I was going, so I had to pull over. And it was the first time I actually felt love like that. I can't describe it. And it was acceptance, and just, it was basically, it's like heroin for the soul, except it's not bad for your soul. You just can't get enough of it. I mean, it's amazing. And during that time, I was really hesitant about it, but I was like, all right, fine. This moment right there, I was like, I don't know what this is. And I think I knew in my heart, I knew what it was. But I was like, you know what? I've heard so much about Christianity. I have so many people in my past who have done it. Let me investigate everything else first. And that's what I did. Well, when I finally came to Christianity, I started realizing, and I'm going to do a video on this one day, addressing, I'm probably going to do it 10 questions at a time. So for the fellow atheists watching this, they can, I'm sure many people want to know, what are the 200 questions that you wrote down? Like, for example, one of them was, why is there evil in this world? Why does God allow evil? That's one of the biggest questions. One of the biggest questions I had, and I'll answer that one now. Free will is not a cop-out. Free will is what God wanted to create us for. He didn't want us to be blind robots. Could you imagine if people said, oh yeah, of course we love God because he forces us to? Well, the thing is he wanted people who had free will. And unfortunately, if there's good, there has to be bad. And there's this idea of what kind of sick God would make us choose, and all of that. He wants us to choose him with free will. And the evil that we sin is like a disease. It permeates through the generations. That's why people say, so why do little newborn babies get SIDS and stuff like that? Because it's literally a disease. Sin affects this world so bad. And the thing about sin is that it imposes. If you look at the 10 Commandments, right? If you look at the 5th through the 10th, the 6 commandments in relation to loving your neighbor, they're all about imposition on others. For example, do not murder your brother. Do not steal from your brother and sister. They are things that you are not to do to other people. And so when they say that Christianity is an imposition on others, that's really not. Sin is the thing that hurts others around you for your own selfish consequences. So now, and I'm going to get into this. I know, this is not easy. This is not something to be glib about, just talking about this. Like, there's so many different things to be discussed when it comes to free will. And so many things that we need to, and I'll get into that eventually. The whole great theology argument, it's not something for one video. But if you really study free will and how God set up the whole system, people say, why is Hasatan, or Satan, Lucifer, why is he the God of this world? Why did you allow him to affect us and hurt us? Why did you, God? And God didn't do anything. God told Satan, basically, if we choose Satan over God, he'll let him control us. And that's what we did in the Garden of Eden. And there's every single person in this world sins. So, moral of the story is there's more to get into with all this stuff. And like I said, this is not structured. This is just my thoughts, but I just wanted to do a little background on who I am, what I believe. I'll end this with my actual beliefs of what I believe. I believe that Yeshua HaMashiach, which through two different translations, first to the Greek and then to English, a lot of people know that the letter J wasn't created until the 1600s. Yeshua HaMashiach, which is Jesus for Christianity, is the Messiah. That's the Mashiach. And Yeshua fulfills all of the Abrahamic tradition. He says, I came to fulfill the law, not abolish the law. So all the prophets and the kings and Moses and all of that, he came to fulfill it because he is the Redeemer. He is our Savior. And there's this really weird idea that Christianity is 2,000 years old and all these other pagan religions predate that and all this stuff, but really it goes all the way back to Abraham, which is 4,400 years old. And it's not so much as calling it the oldest religion. This is when Adonai actually spoke and created a plan for the Jews. And if you will study the New Testament, you will notice that the Gentiles, those who are not Jewish, are grafted on to the tree of Israel. And so we are spiritual Jews. Now, a lot of people don't like the idea of getting too much into the Old Testament because the once saved, always saved doctrine. It's this idea that all of the Old Testament is moot because Jesus came and fulfilled everything, and now we don't have to worry about anything as long as we say a magic prayer and think of him every now and then and go to church once a week, then we're good. And that's the once saved, always saved doctrine. In the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna tackle that and explain it from my perspective. It's really important to note that I don't claim to be an expert, but this is what I've seen, and I'm talking about everything from what I've seen so far. And I want to communicate. It's more like, hey, I've been reading this, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I've been studying, and I want to give you guys something to think about. I'm not saying you need to follow this. I'm saying think about this, and look at this, and look at this doctrine over this doctrine. But anyways, what I am what's called a messianic. Now, a messianic is someone purely that just believes that Yeshua or Jesus was the Messiah. He was the fulfillment of the Old Testament. I am not Jewish. I'm technically a Gentile because I'm not Jewish. But I'm a Christian apologist, but I don't identify as being Christian. Now, why is that? Well, the name Christian was actually used in the New Testament, but so was the way. Now, the way was what Yeshua called Christianity at the time, and the way is actually in the New Testament. When the historicists and all that, they would say, oh, those Christians, basically meaning they were followers of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua HaMashiach. And they did adopt the name Christians. But what happened to the way, which is what Yeshua taught, he wasn't big into the whole idea of this huge religion, the way that we know it today. He was more grounded, and he was talking about the way. And what happened was, I believe it was the 3rd century A.D., when Constantine, he was fighting an enemy, and he said, if you'll help me get victory over this enemy, I will worship you. And he saw a big cross in the sky, and he conquered his enemy, and then he converted to the way. And what he did was, he had a problem on his hands. He had a bunch of pagans that loved their pagan gods, and they loved the Roman gods. So what he did was he implemented many of the things like Christmas. By now we all know that Yeshua wasn't born on Christmas Day. That was to coincide with things like Mithra and all these other pagan gods that were actually celebrating the solstice. But anyways, all these pagan things came in. I mean, you ever wonder why Easter we celebrate with a bunny and eggs? It's a fertility holiday. It's eggs and rabbits are known for procreation. And so with all the history of what Christianity has done and all the leaders and all the ways it has been used for evil, I just didn't feel right being associated with that. And basically, I just don't want to call myself by a name that has so much historical implications. I just prefer being called a messianic follower of the way. That's it. You can also call me a bondservant of Yeshua. Once we start in the book of Revelation tomorrow, I'll explain what it means to be a bondservant, and it's a really interesting idea, and I think it's really cool. But anyways, yeah. So I'm a Christian apologist. Obviously, many of the things that Christians believe in, I believe. There's just some pagan elements that I don't quite get. Sprinkling water, that was done in Babylon with Tammuz, and so many of these other things that I don't understand why they do them when it's clearly a pagan thing. And this is another thing that atheists and pagans use against Christians, is they say, you stole our religion. And it's like, well, no. What it is false prophets and false leaders merge the two so that they could they could get people in their society easily to convert to Christianity. And that's what happened. So I want to kind of set the record straight and show people, look into these things, and don't just go to church once a week. Look into these things, and I'm gonna shoot you some stuff to look into along the way. Now, please remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just another believer who is trying to get all this stuff out there. And I'm sorry for it being so rough. I don't have like a checklist of what to talk about, and I have a really bad memory, so I'm talking about this stuff on the top of my head. But anyways, that was a little introduction, and tomorrow when it's light out, we'll start with the actual Bible study. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Bye.